another Tuesday night show, Real World News TV, with myself, Reggie Kearney, with my co-host, Derek Terry, and all the way from Las Vegas on the Strip, Tony Breedlove. How are y'all doing tonight?
Fine.
Good. Well, look, we got a great topic.
I'm not on the Strip.
You're not on the Strip. Okay.
It makes me sound like a hooker.
Oh, okay.
And we all talked about church today, so we definitely want to make sure we keep it churchified.
Yeah, we'll pray for you, Tony. But what happened last week was my brother had posted a posting on Facebook discussing the amount of money that's being spent in the black church, or being given to the black church over the last since 1980, donations and stuff they received. So then I did a posting on my Facebook page and got a lot of response. Most of the response were from pastors and ministers with their concern about the numbers and stuff, and giving different reasons why the numbers really didn't wash. But to give you an idea of the kind of money we're talking about, Live Steel's research states that over $420 billion has been donated to the church in tithes and donations since 1980, which averages out to $14 billion per year. Now, with that amount of money being donated in the community, in our churches, from majority African American parishioners, the question that's being asked is, where the money going? You know, we look at the communities around the churches and we say, wow, you know, what's happening in our communities. Now, granted, we cannot do it all through the church, okay? And let's establish that, okay? Secondly, we're not here to beat up on churches, because some churches are doing a great job in their communities. But still, the fact that much money has been given to the church in since 1980, that's a lot of money, you know. So lively discussion is about to be had because you know, it's concerning, you know. And before we get started, we want to pray for the churches that were burned down in Louisiana. There had 3 black churches that were torched last week in Louisiana, and so we know what that's all about. Okay.
Yeah.
So who wants to start off the discussion?
Well, I think I start, and I want to put a small disclaimer out there. I am not the most churchified person on here. I may be a little bit close to Tony. Yeah, that means that. Yeah, meaning that, you know, I don't go to church regularly like I should, but I do have a deep faith in my God. So, and to me, there's a distinct difference between, you know, I guess some people say if I go to church every week, I'm closer to heaven than the person who doesn't. That is not necessarily what I'm trying to prove, or the point of this show. The point of this show is, and just like Brother Kearney had said earlier, there's a lot of churches out there that do good and do right by the community, but there are a lot of churches that, you know, I look at it as a big mansion that needs to be funded in some way. And when I look at churches, sometimes I wish that they would just have their bills out when you walk in and say, this is the bill we got to pay for this week, so I can get an idea of how much money you need for that particular week to keep yourself afloat. So, and when I look at some churches, and not point out any particular ones, and I see what they're doing in the community, a lot of times I feel optimistic, and a lot of times I'm like, for real, did they, you know, you got a what type of car, and you got a what type of suit, and this is all y'all could manage with the money that we gave you, is a playground with 3 swings and some sandbox, but yet you got a $5,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry, Derek. I didn't mean to.
and that's fine. And before I close, what I want to tell people is that we're here. You know, we're talking about black churches, mega churches. Don't get me wrong. There's white churches that do this as well. And when I say black mega churches, we're talking about majority, meaning the population is majority black. but church is for everybody, regardless of what race. So I just want to put it out there, regardless of what race, church is for everybody. But when, you're not going to see a church that's in the Plata, you're not going to see that church in Baltimore City on the east side. You're just not. You're going to see it. You're not going to see that type of church. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's first start by discussing
Okay, we lost Tony there for a minute, but what I wanted to say was the majority of the churches here in America are small churches. Okay, 80% of the churches are small churches. When I say small churches, they probably have a membership of 200 or less. Okay, so that the majority of the churches are, and then we'll say the other 20%. They're a mixture of mega churches and some churches that have a membership of 1,000 or more, and then, like I say, you come out with the larger churches, the mega churches. Okay, so it's a wide range of membership and everything. But going back to what Derek was saying about the money that's being spent, yes, a lot of money is being donated to the churches. A lot of money, and you wonder where that money is going. Every church has a building fund, okay, and we wonder how much money is in those building funds. It's being donated to the building funds. But I think we got to look at the top. The top money, the churches pay salaries, okay? Being and I'm in the ministry, okay? Being a preacher, and if you're a head pastor, the executive pastor of the church, senior pastor, you're getting a salary, okay? And some churches pay their pastors well. I know some churches that pastors make anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 a year, okay? Going to what Lance is saying, there are pastors out here that have their own businesses that don't take salaries, okay? T.D. Jakes is one. All his money comes from his business interests, okay? So he's able to do the things he wants to do and live the way he wants to live, okay? But then we have some pastors that are living off the church, okay? Just the bottom line. You have people coming into church on Sunday morning, electric bill got to pay their funds and stuff. They got to pay the electric bill, but we have programmed people so much to tithe, they feel like they really need to tithe. Okay, and Lance said not every church has a building fund. Okay, we'll go with that premise, but I'll tell you the majority of them have building funds. I know a lot of my friends who are pastors, their church has, they have building funds. But so it's a lot that's going into it. But let's always remember that at one time, the Black church was the community center.
It was the cornerstone.
Yeah, got everything taken care of in the community. That's where it all began at, So we got to remember that. But what has gone wrong from the 40s and 50s up to now? Something has gone wrong. When you look at your communities and you look at the blight in your communities and stuff. Are we advocating that the church has got to do everything? No, we're not. But, give something back to the community. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so when we talk about giving back to the community, I mean, are we talking about, because I know that there are some people out there that have even witnessed the fact that, you could be a member of that church or just become a member of the church, and they will put you on something like a year probation before you can actually go to, you smiling, but I'm telling the truth, before you can go to the church and say, I need help.
Right.
I was having a conversation with my mom before, I got here, and we were talking about this particular topic. And I was telling her, growing up in the church, raised Christian, I know the Bible, okay? So I had a grandmother who basically, if you didn't know the word, then you were a heathen, period. Okay. So I understand all of that. I get it, right? The only problem that I've ever had was the fact that I have seen where there have been members who have joined the church or have gone to the church because it sits in their community because they needed assistance in some way. Not to say that they were using the church as a backfall or using the church because they could get anything extra. They genuinely needed help. And I've seen where churches have turned their backs on the people in the community of which that church sits. Not to even mention, I had just joined a church here, right? I might be the biggest heathen when it comes to stuff like this. Like I said, been in the church for a long time. I know the word. However, when you tell me I have to come to a new members class for 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours, every evening for 2 weeks to be bona fide as a member, I've got a problem with that. I got a huge problem. So there's certain things that go on in the church for me that I don't necessarily agree with. Do I agree with the institution that it was supposed to be built on? Absolutely. And it was for the community. But right now, I can say that I have not seen that it has been the cornerstone of the community as it had been years ago. So am I wrong?
No, I don't think it's obvious.
Well, I think for me, I have to disagree from the point where the new members, because I can say for me, the church that I technically belong to, but I haven't been to in a while, I wanted to be an usher. So, I still had to go through some classes, but I had to go through the new member course or whatever. I can't remember I can't remember the name of it, but it was for maybe 6 classes. And to be honest with you, it put me more in touch, not only with the people in that church, but why I'm joining that church. And it really spiritually brought me closer. And then, don't get me wrong, there are situations where you'll go to a church and you'll be overwhelmed by the amount of people. It's almost like you're going to a concert every Sunday. But in this particular case, it brought me closer. Now, what I wanted to do, because some people have made some comments, I just want to try to address these real quick as we get them. Darrell Gray, what's up, Frat? He says, I only can speak for churches I see in Maryland. I've seen them pay mortgages for members and non-members. They assist with bills. Most churches are only places kids' activities, and they have to pay their own operating bills. And I agree. There are some churches, but there are churches that do the total opposite, where, look, if you don't pay your tithes, and I think Naomi Washington said there are churches, larger ones, that won't help you if you don't pay your tithes. And for me, one of the biggest problems I have with some churches, and I'm like, look, to each his own. Whatever you want to do with your life when it comes to a partner or a wife or a husband is your. I personally, if I was a pastor of a church, how can I say, you know what? If you're homosexual, I'll take your tithes. I'll take your money. You can join all the organizations you want, but guess what? I'm not going to marry you. So think about it. You allow them to come into the house. You take their money. You let them join, all the different groups. But when it comes to them to get married, you won't marry them. That's why, from whether it's a small church or a large church.
And I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah. I'm really glad that you said that, because why is it that whatever the act that these people, and I don't want to make it sound like that, but whatever act that or lifestyle or their choice of partner may be, why is it that is the abomination, but the abomination is not that the pastor will accept their tithe or their offering?
Yeah, and the thing about it, they've been doing it, I may get backlash, but gays have been in the church for years.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like it's something new. Me personally, I don't care. I'm heterosexual, but I have a lot of friends that are homosexual, but that doesn't make them any less of a person than I am, or doesn't get me any closer to God than them. That's something they have to take up with God themselves. I have nothing to do with that. But if you have a church that is saying, you know what, we will take your tithes, we will let you be on whatever, but we're not going to marry you. And see, that to me, that's a hypocrisy of the church. See, money talks. And in this day and age, I don't know any pastor is going to turn away money with the exception of a wedding.
But see, and that's part of my issue is that why is it not good for some issues and it's okay for others? Why can't we just call it what it is? I mean, shit, if you can accept their money, then you have to accept who they are. You have to. I would think.
But I think we're losing the focus of the conversation for tonight, okay? I agree with everything you're saying, but we're looking at how this money is filtering back in the community. Do these churches have programs that address illiteracy in the community? Do they have mentoring programs? Do they have things that nature? Do they assist their members in their community who need help, regardless if they're members or not? Okay, you know, it's a lot of money being poured at, $14 billion a year that go into white banks. Okay, the money is not going into black-owned banks in the communities, and all the churches are close to a black bank where they can deposit their money at. So that's where the focus has got to be at. Why isn't this money coming back into the community? What are they doing in the churches? Okay, now I give my hats off to the church during the federal situation back in the furlough back in December and January up in Capitol Heights, Maryland. They gave away almost 50,000 pounds of food. Okay. Okay, a lot of churches didn't do anything for the federal employees. Okay, some churches who did things for federal employees, you had to have your ID in order to get food. This church in Capitol Heights, Maryland, they gave away that amount of food. Didn't ask for no ID. Didn't even ask if you were furloughed. They just did it. Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Because they genuinely cared about what's going on in their community.
Yeah, and so
I guess this is my question. Is it a fair assessment to say it's the church's responsibility to take care of the community, or to preach the word of God and stand by its members or anybody who comes in the congregation? I'm just asking, is it their job?
Both. If you're going to be in a community and you're going to build this fine facility in your community, or you got a regular storefront in the community, find some niche in the community where you can be that beacon of hope and light in that community. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to go to a comment that John Brown had just posted. Hi, Mr. Brown. How you doing? He said, I did some research on this subject. I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, I can't put it up because it's way too much. He said, I did some research on this subject. We blame the church, but the people in the community don't support the churches in their community. People will leave the community and go to churches across town. Most churches do help in their communities, and they, dig a little deeper. I mean, that's a yes or a no, because people do move around. They do go to other churches, but you also have to look at the fact that there are reasons why some people move from church to church, or they have been in a church for a number of years, and then all of a sudden now they're gone. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, when you talk about people selecting churches, for me, most of the churches I say visit, because like I said, I belong to a church, but I visit churches as well. A lot of them do a lot of great things for the community. So I have not to date been to a church in this, at least in the Charles County area, that has not done anything for the community. I have unfortunately been to some churches that do very little, but and when I look at it, when I go to a church, what drives me to, and I tell my wife all the time, I'm driven by the music. I'm from Birmingham, so I'm used to that gets me there. But also the pastor as well as the word gets me there, and then all the other stuff. Because the key thing is what makes you want to go to that church. Do you go to that church because of the things they do in the community, or do you go to that church because of the pastor, because of the service they have? I know the church that my wife and my son and my daughter primarily go to, although they ain't been there in a while, as they go there to get the cookies, the juice, and so I went there just to see, like, wow, they got cookie and juice up in here. But I wasn't feeling the choir. This is me. But the pastor is excellent. But I know that church does a lot in the community. I mean, they do a lot. And so it's hard for me to knock churches that do a lot in the community. But unfortunately, we know that there's a lot of church, and this isn't quote unquote a black church. It's multiracial. So it's a lot of different races, which is fine. Like I said in the beginning, it doesn't matter what race you are when it comes to praising God. But when you look at the demographics, you look where some of these churches are located, they're going to be primarily African American based on where they're at. And like I said, you would not see this type of church, say, in East Baltimore, West Baltimore, at least not right now. You wouldn't see it maybe in Southeast. I think Brother Kirk is what I'm talking about, but you wouldn't see that in Southeast.
I'm gonna put it out there. Now, I know the church you're talking about, Derek, okay? And the church is a multicultural church, okay? Mm-hmm. This is a problem I have. I agree. That church does a tremendous amount of giving back to this community we live in, okay? But the African American churches do not even measure up to what this church does, okay? And when I was president of Ministers Alliance of Charles County and vicinity, I had that conversation with them. Why are we going to let a multicultural church over just outdo us, okay? All right. One of the problems that has happened in the black church, along with the tithing and donations and giving, some of these pastors want to sit aside and stand aside the the politicians in the community, okay? They want to have photo opportunities, but they don't want to ask them to ask the government to provide for programs in the community, okay? The church you're talking about there, they do an excellent job in the community, okay? An excellent job in the community. I had a friend passed away about 4 or 5 years ago, okay? The only reason I couldn't have it in our church was because it was too small to have it. I called up the pastor who I know at that church. He was on vacation. I said, look, man, I need a place to have this funeral at, okay? Because the guy wasn't a member of any church, but his wife had asked me to take care of the arrangements as far as having the funeral. He said, look, man, call my secretary. I'm going to call her. Y'all work it out. He opened his doors of the church for us to come in there and have this funeral, okay? Didn't charge us nothing. The only thing he asked was let one of my associates do prayer, because we're not charging anything. We just want to participate a little bit in it, okay? We have black churches out here in our community. If you're not a member there, and when you go to have a funeral, they would charge you to have a funeral there. Okay, so yes, I'm agitated and mad. Yes, I am, because I'm on the front lines every day, and I know what some of these guys aren't doing in my community and what they should be doing. Okay.
So where do you think that the money is actually going when we talk about the tithes and offering? Because people genuinely, they really feel that, where they put their money, they're sowing a seed. Okay. For continued blessings upon themselves, their households, even the church itself, and even the pastor. Where do you think this money is going?
That's a good question.
It can go variety. I'm saying, don't get me wrong, the pastor, he or she has to get paid a salary, and it could be on wardrobe, it could be on cards, could be whatever. I honestly, if I was at that church, I would ask for some type of financial disclosure or something, so I could see how the money is being spent if I'm that concerned about it.
Right. And well, as a member, you do have a right to ask for an annual accounting as a member, because you should be also getting an annual accounting of your own offerings and your own tithes, so that you can file your taxes each year. I know when I was in California, and I loved my church. Shout out to Living Waters, Pastor McZeal, Sister McZeal, First Lady. So anyway, so every year we would get a statement as to, the money that we put in. Now, how it was spent, Didn't always get that. Didn't always know that, but that's why I asked the question. Lance Reed wrote a very long one, so I'll read Lance.
He got a dissertation. Which one you read?
Yeah,
he's getting a doctoral.
He says I'm in a doctoral program and just finished a study on the church and the community. The outreach is dependent on several factors. One, know the culture of the community. Two, growth and dependent on discipleship. Three, leadership is key. And four, vision and a plan is the key, along with training the church staff. What does the Bible, it moved. What does the Bible say about the church? Be careful, the church staff. What does the Bible say about church? Be careful.
Be careful about
moving on me.
Yeah.
Church and state, there is a big battle going on right now. Church and state is always going to be a battle. And I mean, it always has been. But I don't know.
Yeah, because one of the things, like I'll bring up Chicago for instance, where I think and I'm bringing it up because there's a lot of mega churches that were against homosexuality, but they have a mayor, the first, I believe, in office, and it was almost like they were leeches. They swarmed around her. But I'm saying, if the mega church is swarming around her as a matter of acceptance of who she is, or is it a matter of tying closer to church and state? Because there's money to be made, unfortunately. There's things that they may want to do in the community, which may require a grant that they can receive from the mayor's office. So I think there's a lot of key things in place when we talk about the mega church. And like Brother Kearney said, there are some mega churches that do well. But the key factor to me about the decline, I wouldn't necessarily the decline of mega church, but the decline in the community involvement is the church itself is the lack of community involvement. I'm saying, and it's like a black business. If you're not going to support that black business, then guess what? They're probably going to go bankrupt, or they're probably going to close down because we're not supporting it. The same thing with the church. The churches have a duty and obligation to keep the community engaged and, I guess, quote unquote, recruiting, because there is a recruiting process. You can call it what you want. Something is going to get them there. And then the community has an obligation to support the church. So if the community isn't supporting the church, how can you honestly expect to a degree for the church to support a community? It doesn't even support them.
But you know what? I agree with what I just put up by Lance. Lance Reed said that they are into empire building rather than kingdom building. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a great point, Lance.
Exactly. That's the best I've seen. The very best. Right there. And because he said that right there. And I appreciate what he just said, because that is, I think, the key. The biggest key. Hello, Al Brooks. Lance, where is that written? Where is what written?
Don't ask me. I ain't got it. The wrong person asks about where something in the Bible is.
Yeah, but at my church, we do have an annual business meeting, and we have PowerPoints to show everything, the budget for the previous year, how money was spent, how much was spent out of each line item and stuff, and what the budget is for the following year. So we do show where the money is going. And the church I grew up in as a kid, they had a detailed monthly financial report that they gave out to show what everybody gave to the church and, how it was spent, I think that's what supposed to be done. Yeah, but I think the first part of showing what people gave, I don't think that's a good idea, because some people might feel ashamed of that they didn't give enough. But
no, because when I said that, it's a personal statement.
Right.
Because I think even Jacqueline had mentioned that earlier. You get a personal statement we give out personal statements, So I know how much I gave last year, but the church I was in as a youth,
they gave out a monthly statement that had everybody's on there. Okay, you know, it was like 3 or 4 pages, and then it broke down how the money was spent for the month. So you knew where the money was going. But like you said too, some churches aren't giving out any kind of statement. You know, they're taking money in, and you don't know unless you're an officer of the church what's going on. And some churches will.
And sometimes they don't know either, though.
Yeah, and some churches will, you know, get upset if you go to the financial secretary and say, you know, you like a report, a accounting report of what's going, how the money being spent in the church. Okay. You have some churches are like that. The pastor keeps the checkbook in his back pocket. You know, I've known some instances here in Washington D.C. where the pastor was going around with a checkbook in his pocket, wreaking havoc with the people's money. You know. So it happens, you know. I think it goes in every direction, you know.
Right.
No clear-cut direction, you know. But all I'm looking for is for the churches to participate in the community programs. You know, not saying they got to be the human services department of that community, but your church might have a niche of mentoring young people, okay? Or it might be one of having after-school programs that help kids excel in their program, or your church might be able to support a STEM program. That's what I'm looking at. Use that money and filter it back in the community, you know, and be open-minded. If somebody comes there and they part of that community and they need an electric bill paid, help them pay that electric bill. This is not, we are stewards of God's money. That money ain't nothing here on earth ours, okay? And we pay our bills, we got to pay that car note and everything, but still, we are stewards of what God has given us to watch over. Okay?
So why is it that some just don't understand that concept? Because you're right. Some people don't understand that concept.
Well, I think it's the biggest thing is the lack of education, and I don't mean from a scholarly, you know, point of view, going to school and all that. It's really educating themselves on the inner workings of the church, even from the financial thing. I know me, I'm fiscally conservative, so I want to know how the money's being spent. I know to ask. I know by law they have to give it to me. If not, I report you to the IRS and you would be audited. It's that simple. So, but that's if I want it. What I wanted to quickly address, Lance was talking about where is it written that the church is obligated to the community, community is obligated to the church. And what I was saying, look at it like this. If you built a church, and I like to use Baltimore because, you know, I grew up in that area. If you build a church and you have these big events, health fair, screenings and all that other stuff, and it's strictly for your members, nobody in the community, but yet the community is walking past and they're looking, and their mind is thinking, okay, this isn't for us. Right? So it's almost like you're isolated. You're in our community. You know, you're on this land. You're in this community, but yet you don't have anything to do with us. That's one thing. Now, the other thing, you flip the script. You have a church who is offering all this, and then there's this division with the community is we don't want you here. We don't need you here. Why are you here? And I think what happens is that there's a disconnect, in my opinion, between the mission of the church and then the mission of, you know, like he said, the empire. You know, the empire is to make money, is to expand, is to do whatever. Where the church, to me, is the village concept. Now, do they have an obligation? No. But my thing is, why would you even put yourself in a community if you have no interest whatsoever in the community? You might as well go somewhere way in the country where the land is much cheaper. Put your church right there and then don't worry about it. Because my thing, if you're in the community and you're not doing anything for the community, then why are you there?
I have to agree.
Yeah, you know, John Brown says, I think the people in the community should let their church know what they need. The church will only do so much with the money they receive. Good point. Good point.
And then Daryl mentioned, he said, you know, pastors are microcosms of life. There are a ton of pastors doing the right thing, but the bad ones get the press, which unfortunately is. I'm saying there's like anything in life, and you know, for my white friends are there, don't take it the wrong way. There's a lot of good black people out there do a lot of good things.
It is.
You ain't gonna hear about them on the news too often. But let somebody do bad. I've heard more about R. Kelly and Jesse, and I'm thinking, why? Did they really need to dominate the news?
Really?
The thing is, how did it impact your life? How did it change? It didn't, what they did or allegedly did is wrong. But at the end of the day, how did it impact your everyday life? It didn't. For the most part, it didn't.
Mm-hmm. But, my feeling also is with the amount of money that the church has taken in since 1980, not saying they had to redevelop the communities. And as Yvonne said, some churches do have, Jacqueline said, some churches do have community development corporations that really work in the community to take care of the blight of the community. We could, and we still have the opportunity to have a vibrant community around the church, that supports grocery stores and places, businesses and stuff, because, you look at some areas around the churches, they don't have grocery stores, they don't have anything, And if you have a strong community development corporation, those are things you can take some of the church money and invest into that community in areas where the need for that community is great, and I agree with Derek. If you're having a health fair at your church and you're in the community, that should be open to the community. That might entice people to come into your church and join your church and be a part of that church. And like I tell people in my church sometimes while I'm teaching, we get so comfortable inside the walls of the church that we're afraid to go outside the walls and go into the community and work with the people in the community. And that's where the real need is. The people inside the church, they get it, okay? They get it. But you got to take it out into the community and work with the people in the community to make it better.
Now, Brother Kearney, I got a question for you. I'm gonna put you on the spot since you you definitely got more background with preaching than the word. I preach words, but not the word, than I do. For the most part, if a person does not go to church, does that make that person any less of a person when it comes to the relationship with God?
No. No. I had an aunt, God rest her soul, she's gone to glory. She lived to be 94, 95 years old. Didn't like to go to church. Didn't have no desire to go to church. But had a spirit of a person who was going to church. Some people don't have can't connect with the church, but they can connect with God. They have a spiritual, I feel like they have a spiritual awareness of what's going on. Church doesn't guarantee anything, okay? Church doesn't guarantee. Going to church every Sunday is not going to guarantee you will get into the church, okay? It's a life you live. Okay, I believe it's the life you live. Like my aunt was a good person, but she did not care for churches for some reason. I never found out why she didn't, but she didn't care. The only time she went to church was when a funeral.
I'm just curious for people that are viewing, and somebody can comment or whatever. If you've gone to a mega church and you were a member, what drew you to the mega church? I'm not a mega church person. I'm just not. I don't like being around all these people. But I'm just curious. What drew you to the mega church?
You know what?
If there's people out there.
The draw is if it is a true, like the mega churches in California, you will find that there's celebrities there, that they televise, that they do all of that. Some people get into the hype of that, the celebrityism. I've gone to mega churches. I don't care for them. I like smaller churches where I can get to know the people who are in the church, who are working for the church. because it feels more like family and it feels more like community. I don't care for mega churches. Most people, on the other hand, you'll find them going because they have a bigger music ministry, mass choirs, things of that nature because of the sound. So there are a number of different reasons why some people go to a mega church versus, the smaller churches or the community churches. But it's all about what your connection is with God. I mean, I have to agree with Reggie's aunt, rest her soul. I grew up in the church, but do I go now often? No, because my views have changed a little bit. It doesn't mean that my connection with God has changed. That has not happened. My views are different. I understand that you go to church for fellowship. I get that. That's what the church is for. To be able to then lay whatever it is that you take into the altar. I get that too. But I have a quiet place, what some call a prayer closet. That's what, it's your own connection. And I agree, Reggie. It doesn't mean that if you go to church every Sunday and you're there for Bible study, choir rehearsal, come to church meeting, that you're going to get into heaven. That ain't going to work because you got the biggest heathens and the biggest sinners in the church. Hypocrites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I remember, my grandma, rest her soul. When I was in Alabama, I didn't have a choice. I had to go with my grandma to church. So I didn't know church lasted all day. Like I said, I really didn't experience football and all that until I moved away from Alabama. But we went maybe 8, 9 in the morning. They get home about 2, 3 in the afternoon. But I remember my grandma getting so upset, every time they look, they got the money out for, and I'm like, she cussing on Sunday. I ain't gonna say what she said, but I'm sitting there but yet you still keep going, but she had such a commitment to that church, not necessarily the people in it. It was that church because, she had been in that church for a long time, and until she passed away, as well as my granddaddy. Mm-hmm. But what I remember the most, I used to think it was a big church until I got, of course, older. But that church helped. It was a pillar of the community. Everyone knew that we're at the top of a hill. But it did a lot. But what happened is that the church started to age, not necessarily structurally, but as far as the people in the church start to age. And I think sometimes when you look at the mega churches, there's a diversity of age, which enables them to do a lot. When you have the smaller churches, if you don't get younger members in there, what happens is that it becomes an old church and people say, okay, do I want to go here? What's driving me here? Are you there for the church or are you there for the other stuff? And I think that's sometimes what gets people to gravitate to mega churches. And sometimes it may be an hour, you get in, you get out. And my mom, she goes, bless her heart, she goes to a church probably no bigger than my living room. But she doesn't that fits her. That fits her. And I'm not sure particularly what they do in the community, but I know when I look at the age, they're around her age. So that puts limitations on what some churches can actually do in the community because of the age, the overall age of the members in the church.
So I want to, let's see, Lance said he had put up a question, what about your worship? And what about, I guess, the functioning? I don't know if that was a typo of the Holy Spirit. I want to kind of address that because I knew someone was going to say that or close to it. So, Lance, this is the way I feel. I can sit here and I can actually go into my place with God and I usher in the Holy Spirit right here, right here. And when I say I can feel the Holy Spirit under my own roof, I'm not lying to you. I can worship, I can praise, I can do all of it because that's what I do. I praise him with every beat of my heart. Trust me, I do. And I can feel the Holy Spirit, whether it's here or whether it's in the house of God, in a house of worship. I can feel him in everything that I do. So to me, it's my connection. It is my personal connection, my relationship with God. So I don't know how many other people feel that way. I don't, and when I did the promo tonight, Reggie, I thought, I know that someone is going to ask me something like that.
Well, I think one of the things that's driving religion now is technology. Okay, because
Right.
you have options, and a lot of people do take those options of watching the live streaming of the church services. You don't have to go into the church now; you can worship in your home. But I'm from the old school. I still think assembling it with a group of people is good for me. And others maybe time to time you do it, but technology really drives the church congregation now. Because and you have to understand that because people work on Sundays now, people travel, and people do a lot of things on the weekend. So it's a good thing to have that option where you can tune into your church and get live streaming of what's happening in the church that day and not really miss it. So I think doing everything to maintain that connection to God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I actually think there's been an increase in online Baptists versus stay-home Baptists. I was really part of the stay-home Baptist crew for years, and but I know a lot of people that do the service online, but they also pay their tithes. Now, but like Brother Kearney had said, with the advent of the internet and all that, you can go. Some churches don't even pass around collection plate. If you got your phone, you go in there. You got a cash app, whatever.
Yeah, they got apps.
And I know some of I know one mega church. This was years ago. They had an ATM in there. This was like years, and I was like, wow. But hey, it's one of those things where, like Lance said, building the empire versus what he said, building the church. Is that what he said?
The kingdom.
I'm like, yeah, the kingdom. And I think they were trying to build the empire versus building the kingdom. Because my thing, I look at, I mentioned to a student today, I said, a lot of you see, but you're not focused. You see, but you're not focused. And when you go to church, you need to be able to, well, actually, I wouldn't even say go to church. I was like, when you're building a relationship with God, you got to be able to see. And regardless of what your religion is, because it's not my place to tell you. I had a conversation with my wife. I can't tell a person their religion is wrong. Right. I don't have that right.
You can't.
I don't have that right because deep down, spirituality is based on faith. It's based on what you believe. And I don't have a right to tell somebody, you're wrong, you should do this. At the end of the day, we're all, in my mind, God's people. Your God may be something else, but
you're right.
We all one people. We all, last I checked, we bleed red, no blue blood or green blood. We all, we pretty much got the same organs. So, when we go into, regardless of what it is, whether it's a mega church or small church, for the see, but we also need focus. And I think that's where a lot of people lose touch when it comes to, especially these pastors, mega churches. They see the empire, but they're not focused on the kingdom.
On the word. They're not focused on the word.
Use your thing.
Yeah,
it's not to say that that's a bad thing, but we're just human. We are mere human, and it happens. And whatever that is a distraction from you building a relationship with God, whatever belief pattern you have, whatever religion you practice, if there are distractions in your way, then sometimes you have to get rid of those distractions, because a lot of people might think that, going to church is just to listen to the music, and that's how they, get their spirit raised or get spirit filled. Some people like to listen to just the word. They don't want to hear the music. So whatever it is that is calling you to get a better relationship with God, then that's what you're supposed to lean on. You have to, because I think that we put too much trust in mere man when we call him a pastor. We put too much trust in a pastor. He is a man, and hopefully he is being driven by the word of God, that he feels the word of God so he can deliver it to us. That's what our hope is. But in a lot of cases, that's not what happens. That's how people get distracted.
Yeah, and I wanted to respond to my cousin. My cousin, shout out to you, Willie Terry Jr.
Willie Jr.
I don't know. Do we have a call-in number? You named after my uncle, Willie Sr. But it kind of goes hand in hand. But I don't think we have a call-in number. If we do we have a call-in number?
I'm not taking the calls, and then we're already at 6:24. So maybe next week we could continue this conversation next week, Reggie Kearney. And
we can, because Lance made a comment about we hadn't heard anything about Jesus, and this is what I want to say. We should be modeling our efforts based on what Jesus did, okay? Because Jesus, he went out into the community. He walked among the sinners, okay? He helped those and provided food for those who needed to eat. He healed and he did different things like that, okay? Now, are we asking pastors today to live as Jesus? Because Jesus didn't have an address. He didn't have a salary, and things have changed. Things have evolved since over 2,000 years ago. Things were different, so there, I think the churches are trying to be concerned, have that concern for people as Jesus did. Sometimes things get in the way. I think the church gets blinded sometimes by the empire instead of the kingdom. So we do have a lot of issues.
Worldly things.
Yeah, we do have a lot of issues that keep us from losing that focus, and we lose the focus of what Jesus' ministry was all about. But I agree. We're gonna keep this. I think we can do another week of this.
I did reach out to Pastor Barber, and I was told that schedule is full. I'll reach out again.
Well, him and I attended the same university. Maybe I can, and I know someone who's very close to him. I call my cousin up and see can he get him to squeeze in some time with us in the near future.
That would be good, because I would like to somehow, even though we talk about the basis of religion, and tonight that's what I think that's what we ended up doing. I would like to, because it's a political show, I'd like to even try and parallel religion and politics of today, and how religion is being overshadowed by some of the political issues that we've got going on, because that's what's happening as well. And that is also what I believe is making a major change, or you see this shift in people who are not being a part of the church anymore because of political issues. So I'd like to somehow parallel that next week as well, so we can continue this conversation.
And I have a fraternity brother who works with Al Sharpton, Marquise Ball, and maybe I'll talk to him and see maybe he might be able to come on the show, and talk about what he does with the National Action Network and how they look at politics and religion. Because Reverend L is out there. He's a preacher. He heads up a major civil rights organization. So I had to talk to him, see maybe he might come on to a show with us.
So Lance keeps asking this question: does anyone know what religion is?
Tell Lance we're gonna put him on next week for the discussion.
Lance, you know what? What I'm going to even invite you to do is next week. I'm not prepared for phone calls or anything this week. I don't know why. I just didn't do it. And next week, I am actually going to invite people by posting the link so that you can use your camera to be on screen with us next week. I would like to do that. But like I always say, there's a disclaimer. Do it presentable, come with some clothes on. Don't come on here acting a fool. But I wasn't prepared this week, so I apologize. But we're at that end, y'all. I enjoyed this discussion.
I did too. Enjoy the comments also.
Absolutely. A lot of comments. A lot of comments. Yeah. So, you guys ready to get out of here?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say one thing. If we decide to do that topic next week, I personally don't want to alienate, any particular religion, because Lance had mentioned what religion is. And for what I remember, it's a faith and belief and a God. I'm not necessarily it may not be the same God we worship. It may be someone superhuman or a human element, whatever it may be. So when we're getting into politics and religion, remember, there's more than one religion that's affected by politics. You have Islam, you have Catholicism, which is kind of tied to Christianity. You have, so my thing is I'm not in the position to preach, on Jesus Christ and why someone should follow or not follow. That's not my purpose. My purpose is my faith, whatever my faith is. So, when we open it up, keep in mind, there are other people who have other religions who may, and I know people who have different religions, but I don't try to steer them one way or the other. So we might want to, as we look at the topic, I would say to keep it more or less spiritual and focus on how it ties into a particular political area.
Yeah, and you know what? I appreciate you saying that, because in a lot of ways, we don't want to offend anyone. We want to make sure that people are able to come and feel comfortable with what not only they hear, but anytime they want to comment and share something. We're not here to try and change anybody's minds. We're just here to deliver you some information, talk about issues that people want to speak on, but also be respectful of that as well. So we just want to make sure that people understand that. So if you are Muslim, of Muslim faith, if you practice Catholicism, Buddhism, whatever that faith is, you're more than welcome to come and voice your opinion, send us comments, because we do put them up. We address them, and we address them the best way we can. And the only way that we can is just to be honest and true and transparent to who we are as people. That's all we're trying to do. So I just want to make sure that I say that. But thanks for saying that, Derek. I appreciate it. All right. You guys ready to go?
Oh, yeah. I
Huh?
Go.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So I guess that's my cue to close. So thank you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Tonight's show, really a great show. So I really appreciate Reggie for stepping outside of that political box and doing something and talking about what the people want to talk about, what we want to hear. So thank you, Reggie Kearney. Thank you, Mr. Derek Terry. I want you to make sure that you follow Real World News TV every Tuesday night. We're here every Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 on the East Coast. If you have missed any part or portion of this show, you are welcome to go back to Facebook under Real World News TV and catch up on what you've missed. Also, by the weekend, we have the shows already put up on our website at hottopicstalkradio.com, as well as on YouTube under Hot Topics Talk Radio Network. So make sure that you follow Real World News right here on Facebook, okay, so that you can get notifications of the shows and what they're going to be about. Any last word from either one of you gentlemen?
No, it's been a great show.
It was a good show.
Peace and blessings.
I appreciate you guys. So come on back tomorrow night with Hot Topics Talk Radio with me, Yvonne Baker, and Chris Smith. Tomorrow night, we got another crazy show lined up for you. I think I saw the topic, and it had something to do with how do men know they've got a good woman. I think that's what it was. But anyway.
Still with you?
They ain't shot you yet. They ain't stabbed you yet. They ain't throwing no hot grits on you yet.
Is that how you know she's a good woman?
Yeah.
All right. So tomorrow night on Hot Topics Talk Radio with me, Yvonne Baker, and Chris Smith, the show starts at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock Central, and 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and we look forward to seeing you back here next week on Tuesday night, right here on Real World News TV. We will see you then. Have a wonderful rest of your night, a fantastic week. Take care now. Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Real World News TV, you are clear. Thanks for joining in tonight, everybody. We really appreciate your comments, and we look forward to seeing you back here next week on Tuesday night. Have a great rest of your night. Good night.